Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. We're jumping right into one of the most intense, high-stakes balancing acts in the whole hospitality industry today. It's the secret world hiding literally right under your nose, sitting on the table in front of you every single time you go out to eat. We are talking about the fascinating science of menu engineering and development. So tell me if you've noticed this. You go to your favorite restaurant, and the menu feels, well, smaller. Shrinking menus are everywhere right now, and it's definitely not just your imagination. The food service industry is up against some incredibly tough, unprecedented global challenges. And that piece of paper in your hands, that is their frontline defense. Okay, let's dive into this.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First up, balancing market and business. Then, global impacts on menus, followed by implementing global menu strategies. And finally, we'll wrap up with managing strategic seasonal rotations.
All right, part one, balancing market and business.
Every single successful menu is fundamentally a tug of war between two totally different forces. On one side, you've got market alignment. That's the external stuff, what we're all craving, the latest viral food trends, you name it. But on the other side, business goals, the internal, cold, hard math, profitability, cost control, making sure the kitchen can actually pump out the food efficiently. It's a crazy tightrope walk. You know, diners might want a massive 10-page menu packed with whatever's blowing up online, but the kitchen? They just want to survive the Friday night rush without bankrupting the place. So, the best operators use those big external trends as a sort of framework to innovate locally, keeping things relevant while making absolutely sure production costs don't spiral out of control. And that is exactly why we're seeing this massive shift toward menu condensation. Check this out. A full 20% of operators plan to shrink their menus in 2024. Why? It's all about operational efficiency. By cutting down the size of the menu, you make it way easier for the diner to choose, sure, but more importantly, you drastically reduce the sheer mountain of raw ingredients the back of house has to keep stocked and prepped. But here's the thing, shrinking a menu doesn't mean making it boring. Not at all. It actually clears the deck for some really calculated innovation. We're seeing operators leverage authentic global fusion. Think Korean Mexican tacos or Indian Italian curry pizzas. They're also testing the waters with health and sustainability. They'll run plant-based or vegetarian dishes as limited time offers, or LTOs, which lets them gauge what diners actually want with super low financial risk. And of course, tech modernization is a huge piece of the puzzle now. Merging the in-person dining experience with AI-powered ordering is basically non-negotiable for growth in today's market. Moving on to part two, global impacts on menus. Just take a look at this staggeringly high statistic. Over half of surveyed restaurants had to actually alter their menu offerings entirely because of supply chain issues. It really puts things into perspective, right? It shows just how vulnerable your favorite local spot is to wildly volatile global markets. A lot of the time, they aren't changing the menu because they want to. They are doing it because they literally have to. So, what exactly are these massive global forces? Well, first is supply chain volatility. We are talking about major disruptions like the avian flu wiping out egg supplies, or climate change directly hitting coffee crops and olive oil production. Second is cost management. Rising logistics, transportation, just the raw cost of getting a refrigerated truck from point A to point B forces menu prices up. But operators have to balance that carefully against consumer price fatigue. And finally, labor shortages. There's a very real global labor crisis right now, stretching all the way from farms to delivery drivers. That means delays, slower production, and it forces restaurants to radically simplify their prep, or even run limited menus during off-peak hours just to keep the lights on. Okay, section 3. Implementing global menu strategies. So how do operators actually survive all these insane global pressures once the kitchen doors swing shut? They rely on some very specific tactical survival steps. Step 1. Prioritizing cross-utilization. To fight off rising costs, smart restaurants use the exact same high-cost ingredients across several different dishes. It simplifies prep and can even unlock bulk order discounts. Step 2. Fostering supplier diversification. The pandemic basically taught everyone that relying on just one supplier is a recipe for total disaster. So now, operators build strong networks with multiple local and global suppliers to keep things flowing during regional hiccups. And step 3, data-driven decision-making. The days of going by gut feeling are completely over, which brings us to a really fascinating piece of industry jargon.
Let's talk about PMIX, or product mix. This is how the magic happens behind the scenes.
Operators run these reports and market basket analyses to constantly, obsessively audit their menus. They basically drop items into two buckets: stars, which are the highly popular, super profitable dishes, and dogs, the stuff that just isn't selling and costs too much to make. Menu engineering isn't a one-and-done thing. It's a relentless, continuous cycle of tweaking, repricing, and redesigning based entirely on hard, real-time sales data. And finally, Section 4, managing strategic seasonal rotations. Now, this is where things get really clever. By strategically rotating menus to match up with natural seasons, restaurants can slash their procurement costs by a massive 15 to 25%. Think about it. Ingredients are always cheapest and honestly taste the best during their peak natural growing season. So by ditching those expensive, out-of-season imports for whatever is growing locally right now, operators drastically lower their cost of goods sold, or COGS, and seriously boost their profit margins. But here is the ultimate secret. You absolutely do not need to tear up your whole menu to pull this off. Strategic rotation is really just about optimizing your prep with smart ingredient overlap. You keep your core menu stars totally consistent. Those are the heavy hitters people always come back for. And you only rotate the smaller, flexible elements, things like sides, garnishes, or sauces. Like maybe you keep your signature pastry on the menu all year, but you swap out an expensive winter apple tart filling for a summer strawberry one as the market prices fluctuate. It keeps the dining experience feeling totally fresh while keeping things consistent and easy to execute for the kitchen staff. And beyond just saving money, seasonal rotations are a marketing goldmine. Get this, 59% of consumers are more likely to order a dish if it simply has the word seasonal slapped on it. As diners, we naturally hardwire that seasonal label to mean fresh, healthy, and premium quality. It is a wildly effective, practically zero-cost way for a restaurant to get you to visit more often. And believe me, restaurants know exactly how to play this game. They use those limited time offers we talked about to create a massive sense of urgency. It literally engineers FOMO, the fear of missing out. That FOMO drives a huge spike in visits, and it gives the kitchen a safe space to test drive new trends before committing to them permanently. Plus, they get super strategic with global seasons. When the local supply of something dries up, they just look to another hemisphere. Say you want fresh mussels on your menu year-round. You source Northern Hemisphere mussels in the winter and Southern Hemisphere mussels in the summer. Boom, peak quality and totally competitive pricing all year long. Just look at some of the biggest names in the game proving how well this works. First up, Starbucks. The pumpkin spice latte isn't just a coffee anymore, it's practically a cultural holiday event. They lean entirely into autumn nostalgia to drive just a ridiculous amount of revenue. Then you have Sweetgreen. They overhaul their menu 5 times a year to sync up with local harvests, building a massive, fiercely loyal brand identity purely around transparency and seasonal freshness. And, of course, the legendary Chez Panisse. They pioneered the whole farm-to-table movement, proving decades ago that changing menus daily based entirely on what the local farms have available creates unmatched prestige and long-term brand loyalty. So, we've unpacked the whole crazy tightrope walk of market trends versus profitability, the wild global supply chain pressures, and the downright brilliant ways restaurants use data and seasonal swaps to survive. Which leaves us with one final thought. Knowing all of this, all these hidden mechanics, the global supply chains, the strategic rotations happening behind the kitchen doors, how are you going to evaluate the menu on your next night out? I can pretty much guarantee you'll never look at a restaurant menu the exact same way again. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.